We are.
We're live.
All right. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 o'clock, and we are called to order for our trustees meeting via Zoom. Thanks everybody for being available online. Why don't we dive right in? Any public input?
No.
Nope. Okay. Minutes from our April 7th meeting. I hope folks got a chance to review. Any comments, questions, corrections on last?
Yeah, I do have one comment and correction with respect to under new business, and
Okay.
it's an edit that I'm happy to forward over to Manny and Pam separately. But just in that conversation, I just wanted to tighten up the language to capture what we were talking about a little bit differently. So in that, I did make a request that the trustees be provided the trust funds itemization, but what I'd like to amend that last sentence in the first paragraph to say is Kay Penders said trustees should look at all the trust funds in terms of, my input, what type of expenditures can be made from each, parens, interest v. principal and interest, close parens, comma, how much can be expended, comma, and what restrictions for types of expenditures apply to each, period. So I would move to amend the minutes to reflect that change.
Okay. Second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That is all 5.
Thank you. I will forward those over to Manny and Pam following the meeting.
Excellent. All right, moving on. Oh, no, we have to, so we've approved the minutes with that amendment, correct? So we're good. Moving on to correspondence.
No correspondence at this time.
No correspondence. Okay. Rolling along to our friends report. Hello, Janice.
Okay. Well, we had our May meeting on Zoom last Wednesday. It went pretty well. We did cancel the book sale, and we're looking at book sale alternatives. It's just going to be a slow thing until we figure out what's going on. When the library reopens, we will be able to continue with our ongoing bookshop. And I'm going to try to do it so that there'll only be a few of us that'll be accessing the room and putting out new books, so we won't have a lot of traffic through the room. And of course, we'll follow any of the protocols set by the library. We provided an additional $1,000 for the adult fiction purchase. It was all ready to go for the June books. The new books, but it was put on hold because of the freeze. So we provided the funds so those books could be ordered. And we kind of felt that, once the library opens, people are going to be wanting to look at those new books. The other thing we did is that we talked about, Manny and Margie each have a budget from the Friends, and there's like different line items. And we told them just take the budget as a whole, move things around, reallocate as they need to be able to respond to what's needed now. So for like Manny, he has a lot of money in programs. Well, he's not running programs. So he can reallocate that money to buy some more streaming services, for them to buy books, whatever they need to, we left it up to them. So that was pretty much what we did at the last week's meeting. And I thank Deb for attending.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again to the Friends, just for their generosity throughout this whole process. And I received an email on May 1st that there was a hiring freeze as well as a spending freeze. And I had intentions of purchasing a streaming service called Canopy for our patrons, and Margie was going to purchase a streaming it's a service called Creative Bug, which has like arts and crafts, and the Friends, with their generosity, they stepped up and were able to get those streaming services and provide it to our patrons. We finalized everything for Creative Bug and Canopy as of today. So we appreciate that very, very much.
Great.
And Manny took the words out of my mouth. Again, the friends stepping up and with generosity and flexibility to support our library community. So thank you again. Just fantastic to help us keep supporting the community through this. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Okay, so as we move on to professional staff reports, I just wanted to take a minute to thank Manny and the library staff for all the work that you are all doing throughout this period to keep the library vital, to engage the community, to provide learning educational opportunities, and help us all through this. It's been amazing how you've all been flexible and adapted and innovated to be able to work with the community. So I really appreciate and commend the work of you and the entire team there.
Yeah, it's been an absolute group effort. At the beginning, it was trying times at the start, but we have adjusted. And Margie, in particular, she has the story times that she'll do, and it's on our Facebook page. And Kathy Bell-Harney has been working extremely hard, purchasing fiction for our patrons, and just everyone as a whole has stepped up. Various webinars that they've participated in, still purchasing items, cataloging. So it's been an absolute group effort, and I think this has brought us closer. So we'll have weekly Zoom meetings in the evening, and we talk library business, but then we talk to one another, see how everyone's doing, see how their family's doing. It's really brought us closer. I think we're going to be much stronger once we open the doors to our patrons. Definitely.
That's good to hear, and appreciate your leadership. Do you want to, is there anything in the professional staff reports you want to highlight? I trust the group has had a chance to read through their report. Appreciate you pulling that together.
So, Suzanne's continuing purchasing DVDs, Blu-rays, and CDs. So Tim Golden, he's right after, if you look on page 1 of professional staff report, under CDs, Human by One Republic. Following that, that's when Tim's report begins. So he's been doing webinars. He's been, oh, I'm sorry. No, that's still Suzanne. Suzanne did a lot. So she listed everything day by
day.
By day. So yeah, she's been working extremely hard. Margie getting Creative Bug up and running, doing story time, daily contacts with the children's staff, getting them set for webinars and getting crafts ready and themes. So she's been doing that. Kathy Bell-Harney handles, the Ingram, the book orders. So she's been doing that. She's still doing the schedule. We still have to do a schedule for staff, even if we're not in, just so it's part of our records. And, Tim has been answering questions via email. He's had several, and he's responsible for the nonfiction and the reference collection and science fiction and fantasy. So he's been working on that as well. So yeah, it's business as usual. It's just we're in a different location.
Business as usual, just a little different. That's all.
A little different, yes.
Excellent. Any questions for Manny on the professional staff reports?
No.
Okay.
Looks great, Manny.
All right. Financial report.
I don't believe I saw one in the materials that were circulated.
You are correct.
All right, then. During this time, we had a power outage here, and my computer fizzled out. So I'm actually using another computer in the library. I had to order another one. So and a lot of my reports were on that. So let me find it here. Okay. I do apologize about that.
Not to worry.
Oh, I don't.
So I just sent it to everybody. Okay. So I will say about the financial report, and I mentioned this before, but town manager did put a hiring freeze and a spending freeze beginning May the 1st. If there are essential items that need to be ordered, we just have to go through the town manager as well as the finance director. And that would be like toiletries, something that is needed. The books, Janice brought up the books before, so that was something that we had to put a stop to, but thanks to the generosity of the friends, we were able to purchase adult books to keep that going for our patrons. So, and I know we do have trust funds, so I will probably be coming back in the June meeting and asking for dipping into the trust fund for more titles for the library.
That makes sense. We certainly have resources available to fill gaps where we need to.
Any other questions on the financial report? Nope.
No, I'd look forward to talking about that in June.
Okay. Director's report, Manny.
So my director's report was very slim. It doesn't mean I haven't been working hard, because I think we've been working harder since we've been closed from attending Zoom meetings. So the library directors in Massachusetts, we meet once a week, and we just basically go over protocol, go over procedures once we open, bounce ideas off one another. So we've been meeting. Sales directors, we met again today. We meet on a weekly basis, again, going over specific protocols for sales when it comes to delivery, when it comes to curbside, when it comes to just safety in the library. So I've been part of that. I've been revising the phased reopening plan, which I revised again based on Governor Baker's 4 phases to approach to reopening the state again. So I've been working on that. I've worked on a curbside delivery plan that I've been working with Margie Rossetti and Kathy Lowe and Kathy Belharney. Once we're at phase 1, town manager, we've been having department head meetings either once or twice a week, just going over what's going on here at the library, what's going on at town hall and other facilities in town. Just so we're all on the same page. I've already submitted that draft to Bill Keegan for the library, and he liked it. He said it was very thorough. So I've been working on that, attending Zoom meetings, attending webinars, moving furniture around, moving chairs. So yeah, there's been a lot. Yeah, purchasing masks. A lot to it.
Yeah, whole different set of challenges.
Yeah.
Appreciate the overview and the report. Any questions for Manny?
I don't have a question. I would just note, obviously, Manny, you've mentioned a couple times that town hall has put a restriction on spending. And, I just want to emphasize enough there that if you feel like there's something that you're not able to be spending on because town hall won't approve it, and you think that it's something that you need, then you have, full authority to come back to the board and talk to us about expenditures. I don't think we'll go down the road of I wouldn't think we would go down the road. I shouldn't prejudge it, of making expenditures that would not be appropriate for us, meaning should be capital outlay. But there's an avenue there, right? So you're in a different circumstance than some other division town managers.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's bring that up, Kevin.
Oh, I think Deb's trying to.
Deb, you're on mute.
Okay, there we go.
Right. Sorry about that. I do that to my students all day during reading groups. I mute them. I mute. So we're following Governor Baker's reopening. I'm looking at my calendar, which is tentatively May 18th. So how are the phases? We will definitely start at this phase and then go to this phase, or are the phases more, Kevin, you're shaking your head. So
I did, yeah.
Are we going to pick the phase we want to start in at based on what town hall tells us? The phase level?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Manny.
Bill Keegan's, the town manager has actually, we've been giving, excuse me, him input, and he's been waiting for guidance from Governor Baker as well. But I think Bill and I are on the same page, actually, not only us, but the other buildings, because we're all in a different scenario. Council on Aging, the same thing, that I think whatever I recommend, town manager would be fine with it. You know,
Okay.
like if there's a phase one next week, then my recommendation would be just the curbside delivery, getting
Okay.
staff back into the building. But
Okay.
yeah, but definitely safety first before we
Okay.
even, get into allowing patrons back in the building, which would be another phase. But I just want to make sure the protective shields are all up. We're getting them installed, some of them tomorrow. So we have the place markers that are going to be down tomorrow.
Okay.
So
So we have a time in this agenda to go through that opening plan later on. So why don't we?
Oh, okay.
We'll dig in a
I'll
bit
sit
more
tight.
there.
I'll sit tight.
Yeah, I think we're all eager to get to that too.
So just can I add a little color and context onto the governor's phases?
Why don't we?
Do you want to save it and do it later?
Yeah, let's do it all together as we talk about the opening.
You got it.
Plan. We'll do that in context.
Sure.
Great. Okay. Anything else for the director's report aside from our phase reopening discussion, which will be important?
No.
All right.
No, looks good to
Moving
me.
on to liaison reports and subcommittee reports. Updates from our liaisons.
I have no
And
updates. I mean, other than the conversation with that we had with AdCom, where they voted the budget. It's but that's not. It's not a new liaison announcement. I mean, we had a meeting. Colin, a couple of us were on for that discussion. AdCom voted the budget on April 22nd, I think it was, with the reductions that were anticipated based on the no new hiring pronouncement. So, now that budget is on hold pending town meeting, whenever that is finally actually held, and what other reductions may need to come or may need to be addressed, I should say, based on the ongoing COVID condition is still a jump ball.
Okay.
Subcommittees. I think the only subcommittee we have some in the event speaker series. We'll get to that in a minute in the old business. Any other subcommittee conversations that we should touch upon? Okay. Moving on to old business, the Spinny series. Thanks for the update on the correspondence, Manny. Do you want to walk and talk us through that a little bit?
Sure. So I have a list of authors, and I highlighted in yellow the ones that we spoke about last month. And I reached out to the agencies that represent these authors, and I've listed what their booking fee would be, where they are located, and two of them are only taking spring bookings, and those two actually live in New York City. We do have one author that lives in Cambridge that is available in the fall.
Manny, sorry, silly question. That's spring 2021 and not spring 2020?
Spring 2021, yes. So I guess the question it comes down to is, and this is the unknown. So I did reach out to the agency and said, so if we book a particular author and there's a resurgence or something happens and we cannot get the author, and we do have to put half their, so we pay them twice, to half their rate at the start, and then a couple weeks before the event, that's when we pay the remainder. Would we lose that money? What would happen? So the agency's response would be, we would reschedule the author at a later date. So, which, yeah.
What's the feeling of this board in terms of an October date for an event with the express intent of gathering people into one location for an extended period of time?
Yeah.
Sorry to lead the witness on that one, but
Yeah.
that was artfully done. I think that's a legitimate risk. I mean, the social gathering policy currently is no more than 10 people and practicing social distancing. You're talking about, for this to be what we consider historically to be a successful event, we would want it to be, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 people and more if we can get them. If we're going to be doing something at the Rodman Center, which is what we've been fortunate enough to do the last two speakers, we know we have capacity for about 400 people. I don't know how we're going to talk about doing a 100 to 400 person event in October when we're expecting that we'll be coming back into the V, U, or W shaped curve. But
other thoughts?
I'm in agreement with Kevin throughout this whole process. I don't know if we postpone it till spring 2021 or the fall of 2020, because I totally agree with Kevin's points.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing a little thinking about how to create some more community buy-in to our event. I love this event, but I and have been on the subcommittee with Christine, and it feels quite standalone. And we keep trying to build around this event and book events that are connected, but it had been on my mind this year to do more of almost like a town-wide reading of a book and creating more excitement and generating, taking some of the money that we usually use for food, which we don't seem to need as much, and maybe buying lots of copies of books. And I just don't see that little kernel of a vision that I've started to have happening in this climate. Just speaking from being on that little subcommittee, and I feel like it's pushing a square peg in a round hole, I think. Mm-hmm.
So Deb, Foxborough, we've done an event called Foxborough Reads.
I remember that. Did you?
Okay.
Yeah. The Gogol book, right?
So we did that one, and then we did the last year we did was the Asian author
Memoirs of a, was it? Shoot.
Of a gay
No,
trip?
wasn't it the Namesake? Didn't they do? Wasn't it the Namesake?
Yeah, the Namesake was the Indian family.
That's
right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is a format that isn't of the library's creating. I mean, I think the blank town reads program is out there and can be probably lifted for the purposes of what your vision is, in a way that might make it a little less of a struggle for what you're thinking through.
Right.
I think, I mean, I don't want to monopolize the conversation on the issue, so I'll pause there, but I'll come back with that in a minute.
Mm-hmm. Christine, Tom?
Christine.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to get more involvement, but I'm not sure what else to do with it. I mean, I think the current format for what it is works well, though I do think we should be looking at springtime. I think fall is not going to be realistic at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Christine?
Yeah, I agree. In this particular year, yeah, I don't think that's feasible, in any, just because of where we are right now, where we are today. And, like you said, even if we come out of this, there could be another wave and that,
Right.
so.
So can I ask, if we were going to do it in the spring of 2021, would we be looking to do one in the spring of 2021 and one in the fall of 2021 to quote unquote be back on schedule? Or would we just be looking to do spring of 2021 and then 18 months later be doing another one?
Oh,
And if that's the case, Kevin, are we better off actually, if we're going to have an 18-month or an extended stretch, do we just make that that we take this fall off from this particular event in this particular format?
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm asking the question, Colin. I mean, the initial intent behind this series was to tie it to the initial intent was to get Foxborough reading and engaged and doing an event that's sort of a keynote event for the library that people could look forward to at being at a certain time of year and built around some other activities. So if we're moving it to the spring, are we moving it to the spring? Does it become a moving target of when is it again? I mean, that's why I'm asking the question. Originally when we first started to do some of this, before we went into this spinny speaker series sort of naming component, the Friends were a great partner, and we had 4 or 5 speakers that we brought in, in a staggered period of time. And then the Friends were like, this was great, let's keep doing that. But that lost the unique identity of this is the keynote thing. So that's exactly why I'm asking, is because I think we'd be better served to probably in this environment with this year. And we don't know what the moving target is for next spring either, not to be a fatalist or a panic, but here we are in the spring talking about what's going to happen in the fall, knowing that we're talking about rebounding effects. So my personal preference would be to say that we're not doing it in 2020. We table it and pick it up for fall of 2021.
I like that idea too. I think we should leave it as a fall event and table it until. I think it's nice in the fall. Like, it's the beginning of I know fall is a busy time, back to school and everything, but I think we should keep it in the fall. That's my feeling at this point.
Do we need Deb?
I echo that sentiment. I feel the same.
Okay, Janice, yeah.
You don't mind. I wonder if there's any kind of online thing that you could do in the fall. I mean, would an author be willing to do a Zoom presentation? Could we have everybody read a book and have sessions where we have somebody facilitate groups of a dozen people talking? Just something different for this fall.
Sure.
Yeah. So there are authors out there that are now doing the Zoom virtual book talk, even local authors. I know Jeff Belanger, who's been here multiple times. He's doing his New England Legends programs via a Zoom type meeting with, with various photos and videos that he has. So absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of the public libraries. I think it's in Peabody, and they're actually having a Broadway actress on, and patrons can ask questions. So it's actually going to be live, which is really cool. So, so just to kind of jump on that with the summer reading program, which breaks my heart, definitely, because I know this was going to be a very special summer reading program. So the performers are all going to be doing it via virtual, via Zoom. Which including the teddy bear picnic. Margie made the decision today, which that was like the highlight. So yeah, I was hoping for that one, but yeah.
So I love the idea of doing some sort of online author event. It's probably at a lower price point, and we can take that from the existing funding streams and look ahead to the Spinny series next year. So two thoughts, and I don't know if we need to take an official vote on the Spinny series, but it sounds like we're aligned in that. Do we want to just take a vote just for sake of record in terms of, do we have a motion to postpone Spinny series to 2021?
Sure, I'll make a motion to postpone the Spinny Speaker Series to the fall of, well, we're not really postponing it, we're just omitting
Foregoing
it.
year.
We're omitting the 2020 Spinny Speaker Series. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And with the intention of restarting it in the fall of 2021, should that be part of that amendment?
Do you want to restate the motion, Deb? Just so
Okay.
we're all clear.
So I make a motion to omit the Spinny Speaker Series for the fall of 2020 and continue with the Spinny Speaker Series in the fall of 2021. Does that cover it?
Okay.
I think so.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? 5.
Bummer.
Yeah.
But thank you.
The right thing for the community.
But thank you again for all of your efforts to, come up with some creative ideas, to run speakers to ground, to come up with some really interesting authors, Manny in particular, and go back and forth multiple times on that. I mean, the commitment to the program is fantastic. There's just too many unknowns in this year to warrant expending any risk there.
What I'd like to suggest that we do is take some of that energy around the series, around this effort to gather the community and see what avenues we might be able to pursue for an online talk of some kind. It may not be at the same marquee level as the folks that many have gathered in years past, but it's worth taking a look and again, focusing some energy there and still finding a way to gather the community, at least in a virtual setting.
Yeah, I think people are really open to learning online now. It's become, the fire has been lit, and I think people are willing to do it of all ages, which is great. And we can revisit this list. If they're booking in the spring of 2021, they'll be booking in the fall of 2021. So.
Yep, exactly.
That's
Christine?
good stuff.
Just to get back to the point that Janice brought up, is this a good time? I mean, should we take time at this meeting to discuss possible ideas, or should we agree to brainstorm some ideas for next month's meeting of something like a community-wide, whether it be an online effort or something that we could bring the community together and during this time?
Why don't we take some time to reflect on that? We'll put that on our agenda for next month.
Okay.
Unless there are any objections. I know we have a pretty packed agenda this evening as well. What else? Just so we can take some time to process and reflect on that.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Do we need to kind of tie that up with a communication to John Spinney to let him know about this decision? Do you think?
I think we should.
Okay.
We also haven't reached out to John yet to secure this year his involvement, but I think it does make sense as the naming feature to reach out to him and make sure that he's aware of what's going on.
Okay. Manny, is that something you might like to do, or?
I can do that.
Okay. Thanks, Manny. I mean, I'm happy to do it, but I think he's only heard from me once. So.
I mean, so he usually hears from me, and I'm more than happy to put together a note to send along to him. I do think it's probably healthy that he hears from more than one of us with regularity. But I'm fine to do the reach out as well. Okay. Manny, you and I can coordinate that offline.
Okay.
Super. Thank you all. Any other discussion on the Spinny series before we move on? Okay. On to the Beyond Books Fund.
So this was, I believe, Kevin, you requested this last month's meeting.
So yeah, so why don't I just take a moment and recharacterize what remind everybody what it is that I was looking for us to have going forward. And I think this captures it in part, but I think it's important to not lose sight of the record keeping here as well. What I had asked for last month, which is part of the amendment changes that I made on the minutes, was that on a forward going basis, included in whether it's the monthly statistics or on some periodic basis, we have an update as to the trust funds that are available for library expenditure. And along with that, allowing us the opportunity to know what the restrictions are on their usage, and that, and to include the Beyond Books campaign, because that typically is not included when we see the printout of expenditures from the trust funds. So the declaration, so what you've sent is the declaration of trust that was signed back in, well, this copy is signed by us and with no co-signers, by the way. So that is, I'd love for us to have the copy that's actually executed. And this one is from February of 2018, I believe it is. And then a printout of what I believe are the dollars and cents that have been appropriated for various uses in accordance with the Declaration of Trust. And the Declaration of Trust captures what the purpose of the trust is, who will be declared as the authorizing expenditure agents, and the fact that the relationship between the town and the treasurer, the town treasurer and collector, and the trustees with respect to use of those funds, to make sure that it's ours in perpetuity and not something that just gets recaptured and moved into the general fund. There's another document as well that lays out the purpose of the fund itself. This is the document that talks about the relationship between the Boyden Library and the town. But there is another document that lays out the purpose of the fund itself, and that's not here. So, Manny, if you don't have that, we should identify that and make sure that just all the records are in one place. And that's exactly why I was asking for this. Not because I didn't think Manny had it, just because I'm not sure in that time, as Jeff was drafting certain pieces, as I was drafting other pieces, as that trustees board was creating this campaign in partnership with the friends and with the community, that things just don't get lost. And that the trustees, as we are an evolving body, people come on and off on a 3-year cycle. That we as trustees are aware of what those dollars are and what the restrictions are associated with them. So that takes me back to what you've given me is the Beyond Books, which is helpful. And it shows here that we have, and we don't always highlight this, but it shows here that we have an account balance from that fundraising initiative when we did the renovation of approximately $330,000. Which is in an interest-bearing account, and that's thanks to Deb and the folks who did the Bartholomew planning, is in the interest-bearing account and is earning a return for future use. We use it sparingly. We used it, I think, as you can see from this invoice that's here, we use it sparingly. This is fiscal year 2020. I believe this says that it's been expended. Have we used any of it in this period, Manny? It says
no, we haven't.
Right.
No.
So we haven't used it at all in 2020. And I don't know. And for us to use it, we would need to take a vote of the board, which is not a hard thing. It's just a scheduled thing. But we've used it in the past for the Spinny series. We've used it in the past for Sunday hours, for the initial Sunday hours, and we've used it for other discrete purchases, tables, electronic, technology equipment for the library. That's what its purpose was. So I just want to make sure everybody had that, which is why I asked for it. I don't really have an action item on it other than to say that people are aware of it. But given what's been sent here, I would want to make sure, Manny, that those other pieces are things that you do have access to, because obviously that came under a different directorship, and you've inherited that. And then, so if you don't have other pieces, then again, let me know and I'll dig through my records to make sure that I give you what I have. And then the last thing is where this is a unilaterally executed copy. It would be really useful for us to have the fully executed document as our official record rather than the one-sided agreement. That would be my preference. And then the last thing, and I promise I'll stop on this as soon as I get this one out. It was my goal not to limit this conversation really to beyond books, but to, when we're looking at the financials, to include on a forward-going basis the spreadsheet that show a spreadsheet, may not be because it may not exist right now, but a spreadsheet that shows the trust funds that we, the trustees, have stewardship over, all of them, and what restrictions are on each one of those, so that we can think about as a board whether we want to spend down funds that have no restrictions, or if we're stuck with a trust that is no longer reflective of something that the library really wants to be spending money on. I mean, in my prior board work in Wakefield, we had a trust that only allowed us to spend money, and it was interest, not interest in principal, but only allow us to spend interest from that trust fund on books about guns, which is fine if that's what, and it was not just guns, it was military guns. So it was like a very discrete component of what we were going to spend it on. And we really didn't plan to have an entire wing dedicated to that use. I don't think we get as many of these bequests anymore as we once did. But when we do, I would hope that we have the opportunity to talk to the bequester so that it's more functional for the use of the library, and we don't in all instances have that opportunity. And the other thing here is that beyond books, the number that's in there is reflective as well. At the time, at one point, someone donated a house to us, which we used as sale. When we sold the house, it helped us do the relocation and set us up for the renovation. And then we had to repay those funds to ourselves once we settled that out through, because we used that as upfront money on moving and other expenses. We obviously couldn't create an estate to put it back in whole, so it became part of that residue, went back in as part of the capitalization on beyond books. So long-winded explanation for why I asked for this. I think what we have here is some of it, but not all of it.
Helpful context. Appreciate it. Manny, that's doable. We can pull that into our monthly reports.
Yes.
Excellent. Any other conversation on the trust fund reports? Trust report. All right. Moving on then. Oh, Deb, you're on mute though.
I have two poodles behind me, so they keep trying to bark. Janice, at your meeting, you had checked in with Bartholomew about your investments, and they were different. They were down because of what's happened. I had just made a Post-it note to reach out to Bartholomew to see this total 329,815 has probably been affected. Is that a financial person's thought, Tom? That perhaps this number might be different when I go find out?
Yeah, the market cratered.
Yeah. I know that we're in it for the long haul. We're going to leave this money to sit and do its thing. But is anyone else nervous about it, or just me?
It is what it is.
I think it's too late to be nervous about it now.
Okay. So
don't be upset about it now. You're gonna be nervous.
You'll be upset about it now. Okay. All right. That's all. Just have to put out my anxiety.
Deb, the good news is we're not looking to spend it today.
I know, that is the good news. And I know it's going to sit there and grow and do lots of great things for us. So
exactly.
Okay.
All righty. Moving on to our Board of Trustees vacant seat. We may just keep Tom here all year.
Write-in candidates are welcome.
And he's gone.
Oh, he's
You win,
gone.
Tom.
Oh, we lost him already.
This was
So-
supposed to be my final meeting.
So you think?
Yeah.
Well, I said was.
So we're going to have a seat to fill because there was no one running for the seat, correct, in the elections. So we have some work to do to identify someone who could then be nominated and then go in front of selectmen, correct? For approval.
That's right.
I think we touched upon this last meeting. I know it's a little difficult to do the networking to gauge interest in the community right now, but I'll put out the question: has there been any conversation, indications of interest? Do we need to step up our efforts here? Thoughts, recommendations?
I have been very concerned and focused on my own reelection bid. So I have not put that much into.
And I've been very focused on making sure Kevin does not get reelected.
You have to wrestle him to not go to the voting booth. That's all I'm
Just
gonna
say
take, right?
no.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer that I would have to offer is, we typically try to canvass our various constituencies for people every time we think somebody is coming open on a vacancy. And we've been really fortunate that we've been able to fill our vacancies when we can with really good people. At least after Tom and I initially got elected, that's been the case. But that being said, for anybody who's watching and interested, please, I would invite you to explore joining the trustees. But if we have a vacancy, and that's the will of where we end up with voters or interest for the seat, then I think there's a difference between our obligation to serve the town as policy setters for the library and our obligations to campaign for an empty seat. So my inclination would be to say if folks know of somebody who's interested, and then they should encourage them to consider and explore it. And we'll use this as our public service announcement for the fact that there is a known vacancy. There's no secret there.
I mentioned it before, almost in jest. And Deb, keep those dogs quiet, please. Thank you. There are not supposed to be any pets at town meetings.
No dogs allowed.
I have allergies, and I'm already feeling it. That if someone did get written in, not me, Kevin,
Someone.
instead of going through the additional process of in front of the Board of Selectmen, etc., if someone did get written in, then yeah, that is a perfectly viable way to get another member on the board.
Sure.
How many write-ins do you have to have? Just
No,
one?
you don't need one. You'll need a significant. You
There
need a
must be a
statistically
threshold.
significant number.
Okay.
And what Bob Cutler would set that as is not an answer I have.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not one, because I've been writing you in for things for years, Tom, and you haven't been elected.
There it is in public.
Is it possible, or is it a conflict of interest? And then we'll move on, that we can post this on the Boyden Library Facebook page. I mean, I think we have a pretty healthy following there of people who love the library. Is that putting? Is that?
Are you going to post every time there's an election cycle with a trustee's availability? I mean, I
don't know. I mean, sometimes I think people. The only way you would know is if you read the Foxborough Reporter. That is probably the only way.
Of the vacancy?
Yes. How else would people know?
It's in the Chronicle. It's in the Reporter. It's available online. I mean, you call Town Hall and ask people. If you're only running for the seat because it's vacant, then I'm not sure that you have a full grasp on what is being expected of you.
Mm.
I mean, there aren't a lot of contested races for library board. Thank goodness for
right.
Because the last one there was, I lost. So, but I think if people wanted to run, I mean, I think what you're seeing is a trending for municipal elections generally. You're not seeing a depth of contested races.
No.
And I think that's a sign more about people being interested in serving than it is about whether or not they know that what the election cycle is. We have we have 2 seats open every year.
Yeah. Well, is it something we could make known on the Facebook page for Boyden Library? I just feel like I'm picturing a Venn diagram of people who read the Chronicle and, Foxborough Reporter, and people who follow on Facebook, and it might not always have, the commonality in the middle. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable and to mix content with politics almost. Is that something we should think about?
I understand where you're coming from, Deb, in terms of folks who may not engage with the local papers and may not be proactive in looking in on town websites, but still may have interest in genuine service and a serious interest and commitment to a seat on this board of trustees. At the same time, I also worry that any communication sends the right message about that level of commitment and investment of time. I also think about the Friends Network as well, that, in terms of a communication channel of folks who are dedicated to the library and an extended network beyond just the board of Friends of Boyden Library. I'm personally, I'm more inclined to step up our communication through our networks about interest in investigating the opportunity to serve. I'm a little leery of the writing campaign broadly advertised without. I'll back up. What I think this board has done really well whenever a seat has become available is doing some direct outreach, some conversation, in-depth conversation about what the board is all about, what the commitment is, and getting that buy-in from the individual ahead of time. So I want to be sure we have an opportunity to do that if we can.
Yeah. I guess I didn't mean to advertise a write-in campaign. I meant more the avenue of the selectmen, approval. I wasn't thinking of the write-in campaign as why not try this while you're at home during the COVID pandemic? So I think I'll back up on that thought, and I see what you're saying is that we can maybe approach people we know personally and professionally that might fit the bill and have an interest, and we could put that on our to-do list to try and do a little more of.
Yeah, and
because the selectman thing can happen at any time, if I'm correct, right?
It does, yes.
Okay.
It's a seat. It's a vacant seat until filled.
Until filled. Okay.
And then so Christine is actually the case study for what we did.
Yeah, I remember
to
that.
fill a vacancy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had a trustee resign. We had Christine go before the selectmen. We went with her to support her candidacy to fill that vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Christine's name was on the ballot the next year,
right,
for the remainder of that term. So keep in mind, the selectman's vacancy is only only after this year's municipal election and till next year's municipal election.
Okay.
And then whoever is,
it's a matter of months.
Well, and then that's an open seat for the remainder of the term. So, right. So if Christine had decided to not run for re-election, or to run for election, really, at that time, then the 2 years or 1 year that was left on that seat would have been an open seat for somebody else to fill the vacancy for, rather than a whole 3 year.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to clarify in this discussion that it is currently an open election. There is not a candidate on the ballot. A write-in is possible. It's not the responsibility or intent of this board of trustees to curate candidates. It has been practice for us to engage folks to educate them about what it means to serve on the Board of Trustees, whether that's through an open seat or through a vacancy and a nomination. We certainly would welcome folks throughout the community to come forward if they have interest. I believe any member of this Board of Trustees would be happy to have conversations about what we do and what that commitment is all about. And hope we can engage those folks to step forward. But I just want to be clear about our intent as a board. We want to be sure there is opportunity for in-depth and quality conversation, so we can everyone be eyes wide open about what that commitment is.
Yeah, sounds good.
Janice.
As you know, we have the Friends newsletter that goes out to all our friends. Maybe the trustees has never been a part of that, but maybe the trustees could once a year write an article and just talk about what trustees do. And, just like a generic thing of, and there's the positions of 3 years. They were every year, I guess, is there 2 people every year?
2 seats every year.
Just some, just like background, like maybe next spring or in the fall, just have something for people to put as a learning.
Yeah, I think the only time we make the newsletter for the Friends in that context is post-election, when we talk about, in past, you guys have done an article that talks about who the new trustees are and who was cycling off.
Okay. I
guess
I'm still new to this.
But the suggestion's a good one. I mean, there's.
Okay.
So I think our action item is to each individually step up our communications best we can in the community, and help support that exploratory process for any candidates that may be interested.
Sounds good.
And we'll try and convince Tom to stick around.
It's a mandate of the people.
There you go. All right. Moving on. Unless there's any discussion there, I'm going to move on to the library reopening plan that we had touched upon earlier.
Now, Colin, would you like me to just read through the entire plan?
I don't know that that's necessary unless any trustees think differently. I trust we've all had a chance to read through the plan, which was multiple pages and pretty thorough. Maybe if you can take us through some key themes,
Sure.
or milestones and things you think we should be as discussion points as we review this and give feedback.
Sure, I can definitely do that.
And Manny, just so I'm clear, what are you looking for? At what point in the draft process to finalization process is this? What kind of feedback are you looking for from the trustees? Is this iterative, or is this a plan for which you're seeking approval today?
Yeah, it would be a plan that I would seek approval this evening, because I'm going with the intention that our phase 1, which is the governor named start, would begin next week. So just going over the plan, definitely put the safety and security of our staff and our patrons at the forefront, making sure the building will be safe for everyone once we allow patrons into the building. So I based the plan on the 4 phases that originally it was 3 based on what the White House introduced about a month ago. But yesterday, Governor Baker for the state of Massachusetts as a 4-step plan. So I just had to do a little tweaking here and there. But I will just go over just the items that we're going to implement, no matter what phase we have. And that is for staff to have the masks, the facial coverings. We'll have the protective screens or shields. They're going to be, and some of them are going to be installed tomorrow. There's going to be place markers at the circulation desk, at the reference desk, and at the children's desk. There's going to be hand sanitizer stations throughout each floor. Staff will be constantly cleaning the areas that are most touched, your elevator, the push button, which the children love to do when they're leaving, the little push button to open the door, the photocopier, the fax machine, the keyboards for our public computers, our touchscreen for the print station. So those will be constantly cleaned. I have moved furniture to adapt to the social distancing, which is 6 feet. So I have moved a bunch of chairs into our tutor room, because at the start, once we open, we still need to maintain that social distancing, so there will not be any tutoring nor programs at all. Our community room and our fuller room is actually going to be the quarantine station for all our items. So once items are returned to the library, to the book drop, they're immediately going into the community room, where they will be quarantined for 72 hours. And the 72 hours came from recommendations from the CDC, as well as the International Museum and Library Services. So we're following that, and all libraries are following that as well. I know Norton, I spoke to the director today, they're gonna do it for five days versus 3, but definitely 3 for all libraries. There's gonna be signage throughout the building. One thing that I brought up at our last department head meeting to the town manager was making it mandatory for patrons entering the building to wear a mask, something, a facial covering. And he said, yes, we're going to, once we get into the second phase and we have a limited capacity for patrons, we're going to have a staff member essentially monitoring the door that you see now at your Home Depot or at your CVS or your Stop and Shop, allowing no more than 50 patrons to enter the building. Computers, we'll have our computers, but they will be limited. I believe we're only going to have, I think it was 6 altogether for the public for 30 minutes. Normally it's 60 minutes, but patrons are going to be wanting to use the computer, so we're going to limit it to 30 minutes. Once we get to phase 3 and we can maybe bring in a few more computers, then we can amp up and increase the minutes for patrons. I said library programs are going to be suspended until further notice, and that's for any group that use our building, our community room, our fuller room, our storytime craft room, because those are going to be used for quarantine. I don't know how long the quarantine is going to go for. It may go for a month, it may go for 2 months. It's the unknown at this time. No one has a clear-cut answer. All the puzzles, the toys in the children's room, the kits, they've been removed as well. The play table, they've been removed. You know, at the start of this, with phase 1, with curbside, I was looking at hours, and it would require a vote, would be to have the phase 1 have library operational hours from 10 to 5 Monday through Saturday. There are several staff that have reached out to me that do not want to come back. They have been working from home, but due to health issues, either themselves or a immediate family member, as well as a couple that have children, and obviously the daycares are closed as well, which obviously we're definitely going to, we've agreed to that. So for that first phase of the curbside delivery, as well as the book drops, that would be 10 to 5. Once we get to phase 2, that's when we allow patrons into the facility. You know, then we'd go back to our regular 10 to 8, Monday through Thursday, 10 to 6 on Friday, 10 to 5 on Saturday. Furniture, we'll have our self-check machines. We'll constantly be cleaning them. because patrons do have to, it is a touch screen, so we'll be making sure those are clean. Tutors will be suspended until further notice. Same thing with delivery as well. That'll be delivered, that will be suspended until further notice. Yeah, like I said, the materials will be in the community room. We'd have, so the checkouts, we'd have the place markers. I know I said this before, but I do this all day. So it's just, one after another, just try to make sure everything's safe and secure. Our bathrooms will be opened. I know that's been a question for some of the directors, not having the bathrooms open once we get to the second phase, but we're very fortunate here where we have, you don't have to touch the faucet, nor anything in the bathroom, is a touch-free type of mechanism. So we're okay with that. It's the door handle. And that's another thing that staff will be constantly getting the door handle to the bathroom as well. And then at the end, I just went through the scenarios. The fourth scenario would be if there was a second wave, and obviously then we'd have to revert back to maybe phase one or who knows. That's the great unknown right now. Yeah, you have it in front of you. If you have any suggestions or questions, I do this all day and night. I think about it on weekends and in the evening. I'm tweaking things. Before we do open the facility to our patrons, there will be another deep cleaning from our cleaning company. They will be coming in with the foggers, with the sprays, and the Board of Health will be coming into the library, and I will be walking around with them just to make sure that everything is fine. We're up to standard when it comes to safety before our patrons can enter the building. So that we want to be in compliance with all the regulations that are out there on a national and state and local level.
Manny, first of all, thank you for pulling this together. And a lot of thought went into this. I know you're eager to open back up to the community in due time. But I appreciate the thought that's gone into this. What are your thoughts on the frequency of those kind of deep cleaning activities? So you've talked about cleaning some of the high traffic areas and buttons and things like that. But what about like chairs and tables? How are those being cleaned? Whether is that by staff? Is that by frequent deep cleaning? What is it? That's one of my concerns, that if people come and gather and spend time there in the later phases, that there are multiple ways for those germs to be passed.
That would have to be our responsibility during the day. We'd have the cleaners in the evening, wipe down the entire facility, but it would have to be our responsibility. I see it wherever I go, where I see employees wiping down the counters, wiping down the chairs, wiping down the desks. So we would have to have a schedule of doing that, So definitely that has to be done quite often.
Are you doing like that clean between each computer user and all those kinds of things?
Yes. So if a patron is on one of our public computers and they're finished, it's our responsibility to go to clean the keyboard, clean the mouse, clean the edge of the monitor, the chair, that's, yeah.
One last thought, then I'll turn it over to the rest of the group. Encourage you to give some thought to what are the kinds of things that you may need to, those high frequency touch thing, like the self-check. Yeah. Is that are there things that you may just restrict until later on? You can wipe the computers after each use. I know you're going to do your best on the elevator buttons, but the things that are non-essential that everyone's going to touch frequently more often than you can clean it.
The self-check, we can limit that. Our print station is a touch screen. So that one we'd have to clean after every time a patron uses our touch screen to print something out. So yeah, that would be out of all of it, that's the hardest one, is the touch screen, because patrons do come in and print constantly. So that would have to get cleaned after every session.
Yeah, maybe just put one of your hand sanitizers next to it.
Yeah, and bringing that up, we do have a lot of hand sanitizer. I had just ordered wipes through our cleaning company. They've been back ordered, and then last Friday I received an email. So we have that. We do have masks. We're getting more masks. Some staff, like I have my own mask, so I'll just wear mine, and staff will bring their own. Gloves as well. Some, like I can't use like latex or anything like that. I have to. So I have my own set of gloves. I know some staff do as well, but we'll have that available for our staff. We have plenty of disinfectant spray. We have a lot of that. Hand sanitizer as well. It was the wipes, but now that's starting to. Last Friday. That besides my computer completely just dying, but that was good news to get the wipes. So
Good.
Yeah.
Other thoughts from trustees?
Manny, when you say that 50 patrons would be allowed in a time, what's a typical amount of people in the library at a given time?
More than 50. Definitely more than 50. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, the question that I have is, once we do get to phase 2 and we open, are we going to get a pack of patrons entering the building, or is it going to be just a slow burn, slow process? So, we usually have more than 50, especially when it comes during the summer. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if a employee would be, if they're managing that in incoming group, outgoing. I just don't want there to be any, been hearing in the news about a lot of kind of, not harassment. I don't expect people to harass anybody, but if someone comes in, can they spend 3-4 hours?
Yeah.
I don't want us to get to like a state where we're limiting people's time and needs inside the library, but if we have more than 50 people typically, and they come in and spend, I know when I go, I'm there for 2 or 3 hours. Like, any thoughts to how you'll handle a wait list or a line out in the outer doors?
So the line would be like what you see at the grocery stores. It would just literally be a line waiting to get into the building.
Okay.
Some libraries have put in like a no loitering policy. So it's basically, you're just in and out. Like if you were going to a Cumberland Farms or a convenience store, it's just you're grabbing a couple of items. I mean, we're not going to have staff, okay, you've been here for 5 minutes, get out. We're not going to do that. No,
I don't want anyone to
definitely not.
No.
Yeah, we're not going to be. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's an issue. I think, to be honest with you, I think we have to see how the process goes, and then we can adapt.
I think you're unsure. We're all unsure. How's it going to be? Is there going to be a rush on the door because people are pent up? They need to do research. They want to do this.
Yeah.
Or are people going to be reticent and stay back and stay home and take advantage of the online stuff? I know we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But that thought has all the thoughts have gone through this past month. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who will that fall to? Will that fall to the staff downstairs in the circulation desk because geographically they're right there by the door? Do you have any thoughts of who might take charge? Are you going to rotate it?
Oh, yes. Yes. So we're going to have a rotating schedule. I will do mornings, especially the first day that we're open to the public. I'll be at the door being the monitor, or whatever you want to call it, the bouncer or whatever, and allowing no more than 50, into the building. So, yeah, I'm to the point, and I actually said this today at the sales meeting. I want to see how this is going to run and operate, so then we can make adjustments, and they all are in agreement too.
Sure.
So,
Okay, well, let us know how we can help that
yes,
part.
we'll have Tom as a monitor.
You'd be a good one.
I have a couple of questions if I can.
Yeah.
So, Manny, this is built on the governor's announcement yesterday about the 4 different phases of reopening. And the 4 different phases of reopening that he's talking about really have to do with the resumption of business. So, can you give us any sense of why you think you guys as a library are going to be in all 4 phases, or why you're assuming that that town services will be in all 4 phases? Is that what you're hearing from the sales network, or from the library commissioners, or from town hall? I mean, we took a vote to close the library, so I'm not quite sure that I'm not sure that this board has decided whether or not the library should be reopened on May 19th, if in fact that is the date that the governor says phase 1 starts. And there's significant question as to whether or not that will be the case.
Right. Yeah, I would need trustee approval, even for phase 1, which we wouldn't allow any patrons into the building. Our phase 1 would basically have staff coming in and then offering very limited service. In this case, it would be curbside delivery and just with emptying the book drops into the facility. So we wouldn't even have patrons entering at all. So at today's sales meeting, that was brought up, and other directors, they were going on a 3-phase plan, just because there hasn't been clear guidance for public libraries anywhere.
Right.
So I have friends that are directors in Texas, Georgia, New Mexico, Indiana, all over the country. And I mean, Texas, their libraries are closed. They're offering the curbside. But I mean, they're getting guidance from their trustees. They're getting guidance from their town manager or their council commissioners. But there's no clear outline on what libraries are supposed to do. And not every library is going to open up just like that. There are city libraries that they still have a lot of questions that need to be answered. And they are meeting because they're in a totally different scenario than we are, especially ones that have branches. So that was a discussion today. And at Monday's department head meeting, like I said, Bill has and this is just a draft right now. So Bill does have the town manager does have a copy. So does the Board of Health, and they like what they saw. I think
when did they get that?
It was the same day I sent it to you, so it's been a couple of weeks now. Yeah.
This document we got a couple of weeks ago?
Yes. Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, it's been evolving because the first document only had 3 phases. Now this one's got the 4. I just adapted that today. So.
Oh, I have it here, May 1. Yep.
Okay, so yeah. So
I think there's so I'm going to go back and re-ask my question then. So you talked about, your other directors that you've talked to in other areas, and they've been getting some guidance from their town managers or from their trustees, so I'm curious to know who else, where you're getting your guidance from in terms of the development of this as a document that's a resource that we should be aware of. Because town hall is obviously interested in the business of government, and I'm assuming that they've reviewed this at some length with you. Obviously, we haven't. We're talking about it tonight, and the revised version that you sent to us, you sent us this afternoon. So I really haven't had a chance to go through that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and the revised, like I said, I was just basing it on what the governor, announced yesterday. So,
Yep.
so I looked at other reopening plans from around the country and saw what they had. And then what I did was I walked the entire facility. I worked everywhere, and I saw what needed to be done before we can open. So I had the mindset when I was walking around, what would happen if we were open tomorrow? Okay, this would have to be done. This has to be done. And so between that and looking at other libraries' reopening plans and various webinars, this is what I came up with. And I think I covered all the services that we provide here. But again, this is changing. I mean, this could change next week. I mean,
Right.
who knows? So that's, yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of my reticence in taking a vote on this is twofold. One, appreciating that you're taking a thought document from earlier in May and making it into a 4-stage plan to be consistent with what the governor announced yesterday. I'm not sure that what the governor announced yesterday applies to you. And so that's something I would want greater guidance on and greater comfort on before we took a vote to institute something here that may not be reflective of the actual circumstances that we'd be looking at for phase 1 through 4 next week. Or whenever those triggers are hit. And I can't emphasize that enough because the governor certainly is emphasizing it in every press conference he does, that May 18th is a reporting goal. It is not necessarily a start goal. And I think that's something that everyone needs to be really mindful of here. Certain things are going to open. Certain things are going to resume on May 18th. Some of you may have bought flowers for your mother or received flowers from your kids as a result of the florist being reopened prior to May 18th, right? Golf courses, for those of you who golf, are back up because of that conversation. So it is a rolling process, but a very moderate rolling process. And Governor Baker emphasizes that ad nauseum in press conferences. I mean, if you've watched one, you've seen the same speech that he is doing, and he's doing it because the data tells him where he goes rather than setting an arbitrary date or an arbitrary set of, and I don't mean to say arbitrary, your effort was arbitrary. I'm saying that we're reacting to moving targets. Again, along with that, I think that we as a trustees board have, this is again my own personal take, we have an obligation to our staff and to our citizenry with respect to how that building should be used. And I wouldn't want to take a vote tonight that says, personally, if we do take a vote, I'll abstain. But I wouldn't want to take a vote tonight that says that this draft plan that has been vetted at town hall and has been vetted in other areas, but has been revised as recently as today, is the plan and the playbook by which we should live as a body. I just don't think we're ready to do that.
Kevin, do you think? Yes. So the governor has not mentioned public libraries at all. I know that for a fact, and that has been a bone of contention with the MBLC as well as Mass Library System, and they've been in contact with his office because there's not one mention of library. So that's where we're all kind of trying to figure out what's going to happen. So if we don't vote on the plan tonight, which is fine, we may need to have another meeting, say next week. Maybe libraries are actually mentioned and there's guidance with libraries. So we can come back and say, okay, at least phase 1, which would be the curbside, we could do that. So, because I mean, it's frustrating for me just not knowing where the library stands because it's never mentioned, and we're all just kind of doing our thing with the intention that everything's we're gonna get the A-OK next week, but
I think, and I'll say it again, I think this is a very thoughtful document that you've put together. I wish I had had more time to internalize some of it. But I think that without clear guidance from the administration. And in particular, personally, I would want some sense of guidance from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, given the unique nature of what we're talking about here. So before we took a vote on what a plan should be, in other circumstances, people are implementing plans that then, once they implement them, are not reflective of the authorization and the direction they're getting from government. So if we take a vote tonight to implement a plan that looks like this, as thoughtful as it is, and some other plan comes out tomorrow, we're going to have to come back anyhow, Manny.
Do you think we could all vote, the trustees could vote separately without the plan, but when it comes to, say, and this would have to be another meeting because we don't know when, we're going to get a green light, but a separate vote on offering the curbside to our patrons. And the specifics with the curbside's already been discussed with Margie and Kathy Belharney and Kathy Lowy and myself, just so we can get that part, the nuts and bolts down, that can get translated to our staff once, we're good to go with that.
I think you can start doing your logistical planning of how that would work, but until we get clear guides, until there's an opportunity for us to reflect on the recommendations and see how that aligns with what the recommendations from outside entities are, I wouldn't want to pre-authorize that, I think. And if we can suggest you get your ducks in a row, and we're as eager as you are to resume serving the community at the right time and in the right way. Yeah. But I think we need a bit more time to align with what their outside recommendations are. At least that's my personal take. But Deb, Christine, Tom, I want to hear from you as well.
Manny, I share your frustration. I understand what you're saying, that, the governor has yet to mention that. So I know that's and he's done that with different businesses, so I share your frustration, but I can hear what everyone else is saying, that until we, like you said, get that green light, like the golf course has got the green light, right? They can open, yet they can't have carts, you know what I mean? So even though they're open, so I think we have to initially get that green light. And like Kevin said, 18th is not a start date. It is literally just a date to revisit maybe, or just reassess. So, and like Kevin said too, we're not questioning, like, obviously you've spent infinite hours on this plan. So I think, as a board, we have nothing but praise for you for doing what you've done. But like you said, there's just so many unknowns still out there that we can't really act upon it. Does that make sense? Or if my fellow board members want to chime in, feel free.
I mean, I would just go back to the governor's proposal is focused on the restoration of the economic recovery, right? Bringing businesses back to work. I understand why Manny broke it out in the 4 phases. It's reflective of what the information was from yesterday. And bully for you. I think that's smart to have done that. But I haven't heard the governor talk about not about libraries. I haven't heard him talk a lot about courts. I haven't heard him talk about the return of state agencies. I mean, the business of government, he's not concerned about getting back to work right now. The business of business is what he's focused on, because you respectfully don't bring him any tax dollars. And we're looking at a $4 to $6 billion deficit this year.
Yeah.
So as far as I think I don't work for the administration. I'm not going to speak for them, but I am right now. As far as the administration is concerned, I don't really think that they're worried about when the library's open. Now we should be, because we have an obligation to our staff and to our citizenry. But I think the assumption that on May 18th that we're going to have guidance as to what the library should do that would be really ambitious.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping for it from from the governor, from his administration. But again, I'm all about libraries, and that's probably same thing with Council on Aging. I know nothing's been mentioned about that, and that's another dealing with a vulnerable population. You're dealing with, yeah, and it has been nothing. So what I did was, and like you said, I'm trying to get my ducks in a row. So then I'm not, once we do get a green light, we're all scrambling, having, meetings every night, trying to figure out, what we're going to do. So at least now I can have like an outline. So then if I need to adjust, so be it.
And I would have no objection with you sharing this with your senior staff and with other staff members so that you can do quality control on what it would, troubleshoot it and know what it would look like and how it would work. So that if you haven't done that already, at least you've walked what the pitfalls are, right?
Mhm.
So that when it is time and it is appropriate for us to talk about it and actually take a vote on it, that we know that you've already done that faith walk internally.
Yeah.
And if things need to change based on the shifting current events, then you guys can do that fastly. I mean, it's far more important that from an activation plan that you guys know what works and what doesn't work. And the likelihood, given this board and the relationship that we typically have in these discussions and conversations, is we're going to take it on faith that if you say to us, this is what works because we did quality control on it and we know how it would operate. I'm not going to tell you how to operate the building. I'm going to make sure that you've already put in place those things. Yeah, I don't want to micromanage that process.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know you have faith in me, and obviously I'm putting our staff and patrons at the forefront. So, I mean, I want this place, secure, that when patrons enter this building, that they feel safe. Obviously, staff, that goes without saying. I mean, they're going to be, we're going to have all, the PPE, we're going to have everything, all the measures there. So they feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, I know they will come to me. And I will make sure they feel safe. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess it's just, and it's not, reflected on the board. It's just, the whole process is just frustrating. And I'm not the only one. Obviously, all these other library directors are all in the same boat thinking, when is this going to happen? So it's just, yeah. So it's like a wait and see approach, but at least you're building a house. So we got the foundation going, we're starting to build, and obviously there's going to be changes because we could go through this plan and say it looks good, and then something's going to pop up that was not in this plan, but we'll make adjustments very quickly. Mm-hmm. I can assure you that. So, yeah. So, and then the other thing is that like other libraries are surrounding me, it's like every town is its own empire. So some are like, oh yeah, absolutely, Monday you're open, boom, here you go. And then there are some that, no, we're not going to do it. So then it's tough. It's not like a county, like in other states where it's the county makes the decision.
But if they announce Monday you're open and we're not ready to open on Monday and
Right.
You need to come back and talk to us, then maybe you're open on Tuesday.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, like that discussion could be had in a fairly short window. I mean, it can't happen from day to day because of posting obligations, obviously. But we're not talking about saying because we didn't do it tonight, we can't open until sometime in June.
Right. Right. If the governor comes out and says on Friday, he mentions public libraries, then a week from tonight, we could actually meet and be the 48 hours posting. Absolutely.
So I think some good discussion. I think you've gotten some good guides. We haven't heard from Deb or Tom if you had anything to add before we move on this topic. Just one of Paul. Okay, Deb's good. Tom, I'm sure Tom's giving a thumbs up as well. So yeah, Mandy, certainly a frustrating situation. And as Christine said, you have the faith and support of this board. We want to help support you in the decisions around opening in the right time frame and in the right way. And getting, as you say, getting your ducks in a row is the way to spend our energy. And so the more we get done now, the faster we can be ready to open when the time is right. And when we get that green light from the outside agencies, we can gather the board as necessary.
Yep.
In the meantime, if folks on the board can spend a bit more time reflecting on the guidelines, Manny, the updated ones you sent today, if there's any additional feedback, to send that along, just so we can keep tightening that down. But I think Kevin's suggestion to share that with your team now, the working draft, I think is a good recommendation. Okay. Any other comments on that topic, or shall we move forward to the last few items? Okay. Looks like the staff development day has been rescheduled to the fall, which seems to be a prudent decision.
Yeah, so we're looking
All you want to add there?
September 1st. Again, all subject to change. So that's what I'm looking at.
So will you need our authorization to open the library late
Yes.
to reflect that?
Yeah, so we'd be closed from 10 to 1, so we'd open at 1 o'clock on September 1st.
And so that's not captured on the staffing schedule that you circulated to us, or is it?
It is not. No, it's not on there. No,
Okay.
I just have the holidays and.
It's two separate votes. I see.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion?
So I would move that that September 1st, the library be authorized to open late to as subject to the discretion of the director for the purposes of conducting a staff development day prior to the library's opening for public business.
I second that.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Tom, do we have your vote? Okay, there we go. Thank you.
I hope you can have it on that day. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah.
And Manny, any the cancellations for programs are canceled through July, am I right? For like children's room and
Oh yeah, and probably I mean it's in the plan, but just everything's suspended until further notice.
Okay.
So it's, yeah.
All right.
And I've contacted everyone through mid-May, and the ones I haven't, but they, as soon as I speak with them, they know.
They know. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to the proposed July to December schedule, Manny.
Yeah, this is just through the end of the year, the days that the library would be closed or when summer hours would begin, and Saturday hours as well. Just through the end of the year when Sunday hours would begin as well. Just need a vote from the board.
Any significant changes from prior years?
No, pretty standard.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to approve the?
I would move to adopt the holiday schedule as proposed by the director.
I second that motion.
Second by Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
5. All right. Anything else we need to cover in today's meeting before we adjourn?
Only that generally this would be Tom's last meeting. So if it's not inappropriate, Mr. Chairman, I would like to say a few words of thank you.
Please.
And before I do that, Manny, I would remind you that for the next agenda, we in June should be voting on officers and appointments and all that sort of stuff. So Mr. McGee and I came into this board 10 years ago to a very different board in a very different position in a very different building. And we've done a lot of seemingly moving a lot of books since. Tom, thank you for saying yes when asked to serve and to run. I'm glad that I let you win the first couple of elections. Because I know you would have been sulking and you probably would have left earlier if I had beat you. So It has been a thrill to, as much as it can be, to be on a library board with somebody who has shared the same sense of irreverence, the same set of responsibilities and obligations, and the same diligence. And I really appreciate, I could not have done the library project, the renovation, without you. You're smarter than I in a lot of ways, including that you've maybe decided when the right time to leave is. So I will miss you dearly on these monthly meetings, but I know that I will find ways to harass you differently.
Thank you.
Aw. That's nice.
This officially makes me the old man of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you, Tom. I won't try and recap or top what Kevin, as the elder statesman, has shared. But yeah, I too really enjoyed our work together and the fun as well. Appreciate it.
And just a heartfelt thanks to Tom. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
From me too.
Oh, you don't mean it, Deb.
I don't.
I know.
Not a word of it.
We've known each other way too long.
That's right. We go back even further than this. So
Yes.
Well, at the appropriate time and setting, we will celebrate you, Tom.
Yeah.
And
Not until you're
service.
gone.
Yeah,
Until you're
exactly.
gone.
Ding dong, he is gone.
We may or may not invite you.
That'll be more fun without me, obviously.
Not if you're paying.
McGee's there again.
I disagree.
Well, would you like to make the motion to adjourn, Mr. McGee?
I would move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
On a motion by retiring Trustee McGee, seconded by Elder Statesman Penders.
It's the dean of the library trustees.
We'll have to take a vote on that one. There's a motion on the floor. All in favor of adjourning Mr. McGee's last meeting?
oh,
I
If we don't adjourn, he has to
Four.
stay.
That's true. 4-0-1. All right.
all right.
Thank you again, Tom. Manny, thank you again for all your work. I know this has been a
Thank
really
you.
trying period. Hard to get through the staff. I'm talking about Tom's tenure. In all seriousness, we will get through this COVID crisis. Appreciate
Yeah,
your
we
prep,
will.
your thought, your patience, and leadership on this, and looking forward to having our vibrant community center back.
Absolutely.
Amen.
stay safe.
Stay well, everyone.
Yes.
Take care,
Have a good
everybody.
evening.
Take care now.
Stay safe.
Janice,
Thank
good
you,
to see
Foxborough Cable Access.
Yes, thank you.
Once again.
And Paul Beck.
Paul Beck. Thanks,
Paul
Paul.
Beck.